told your friend you're not okay? And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay? Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain.
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away. As you fade away.
Yo.
Never said you felt that way. I guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray.
It's a beautiful song. Only thing is, I got me them brown eyes, baby. All right, we are going to be doing some Gavin Ortlund stuff today. We're going to start off with Gospel Simplicity and then go to Matt Whitman. But we're going to start off with a discussion about it because I thought the discussion about it was actually better than the actual video. And we're going to just go right down the line. There was another one that is actually really good. I think it's called Church Divided or Church Split or something like that. They also had a very good take, but it really wasn't something that would be good for conversation. So we're not going to do their video. All right, here we go.
I think the thing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I do feel like I think that, and we've all for sale.
Whoa, wrong one. There we go. Okay, real quick. This guy does not impress me at all in this video. I've seen about half of this video. This guy doesn't say much, so I don't really have an opinion on him. This person right here. Whoa, you can't see my arrows. There we go. This person here did not impress me. This person here doesn't really say much. This person here, I really distrust where she ends up going. The Daily Wire has shown itself to be an unreliable source on anything that's not Ben Shapiro himself, which is very disappointing.
And the online kerfuffle that has been causing, and about Megan Basham's new book, Shepherds for Sale, and the online kerfuffle that has been causing, and all the sort of ins and outs and what have yous, small picture stuff, big picture stuff. And I feel like we have been texting about this for days, and hopefully I think we still have gas in the tank. I think we've only scratched.
Yeah, I
the
hope I
surface.
didn't ruin it.
No,
I suddenly had a bunch of brilliant thoughts today. I was like, it's all come together. There's this, there's that.
So even if we have to repeat some of the things we've already texted about, I feel like
Happy
that's
to
okay.
repeat.
I think it's funny that her name is Bethel, because it makes me feel like that's such the name of a bad guy. That's such the name of a villain, and she's definitely playing the villain. All right, here we go. You'll see. You'll see once we get going. Play.
My brilliance for everyone. Yes.
All right. I don't know. Do either of you want to sort of summarize what's happened so far, Bethel? If you...
Okay, really simply, what's happened so far is that back in 1562, I don't know, sometime around there, this guy named Martin Luther decided that he wanted to split from the Catholic Church, and he created a big kerfuffle. Anyway, then some other heretics like John Calvin came along, created their own version of religion. Then fast forward, I don't know, 1,500 years or so, maybe a little bit more. And around the year, we have to go back to the 1980s and 1990s, where conservative pundits like Rush Limbaugh decided that anything that went against the profit motive, like with environmentalism or anything like that, even if their concerns were valid, had to be squashed, because some of the concerns were invalid, or, just like with the satanic panic on the conservative side, there was an environmental panic on the ultra liberal side, pre-progressive in a way. And so they decided to push back on everything, which was stupid, because some of the things were really important. Like, I remember the air quality in Mexico City. I remember the air quality in LA. And now the air quality is much better. So no, that was real. That was legit. Getting cancer or losing IQ points from lead paint, or having, bad unregulated chemicals. That was all real. That stuff really did happen in the 90s. So, but you have this opening divide between the conservatives and the progressives, but there's not a Christian divide. It's Christians all over. Everything's all Christian. Then, surprise, surprise, the world doesn't end in 1999. There is no world war. There's no nothing. So people start losing faith in the rapture, in the apocalypse, in everything that was building up in our collective imaginations. So eventually, with the advent of LGBTQ, people start losing faith in the religion. Religion kind of starts to die around the world, or at least in the West. So the same people who brought you the conservative movement in the 80s and the 90s decide that they're going to make all these wedge issues the thing that brings people back to religion. Doesn't work. Instead, it turns into a split within Protestantism. So now Protestant has their own Protestant Reformation to deal with, and they don't like it. Sometime Ben Shapiro is born. He plays the violin, gets famous for saying something snarky, goes to college, supposedly. We don't have proof. He then gets a talk show. He then meets friends with a rich person. He pretends to own the company that they run together, but he doesn't even really run the company together, and he doesn't own it. Then he hires a guy, or someone hires a guy, who makes a movie called What is a Woman, in the middle of the transgender movement. And there's something about Will and Grace, but I missed it. And then the movie becomes a hit. The Daily Wire becomes a big deal. They hire writers to write articles. One of these writers is her friend, who she helps write the article, or helps write the things that she's writing. But then comes coronavirus and the lockdown and the I think it was like called the restart or something. I don't know. It was some stupid idea that some people in Europe had, the Great Restart or something like that. And because they said it out loud at a G7 meeting, everybody thought it was real, and that turned into conspiracy theory madness. And then in the West, we kind of overreacted, shut down churches. We didn't overreact by asking people to get vaccinated. We didn't overreact by asking people not to do stupid things. But we told people not to go to church, but they could go to a strip club. It was kind of stupid. People reacted to the stupidity, but more stupidity. Conspiracies went crazy. And then, and I remember when this happened. I was actually on the internet when this happened. During this whole great restart, everybody's going to eat bugs. I believe it was Bill Gates Foundation wrote a stupid paper about pastures for rent. And it had to do with using the same model that the right used in the 80s and the 90s, to use that same model to go and find pastors and preachers who were already saying, so you're not paying them to switch their opinion. You're finding the ones who already say the things that you agree with. That's why it's going to be called pastors for rent, not for sale, because you're not buying them. You're simply going to support them if they're saying what you like. And that way, with their message being amplified, you'll hopefully spread to other people, and then you'll save the environment or the world that way. It doesn't work because they said it out loud, and just like with the G7 thing, everybody went conspiratorial. But this one person, this person's friend, the person here looking right there, Bethel's friend, writes a book about it anyway and uses Gavin Ortland being very mildly pro-environment as an example of a pastor for rent. Now she's backtracking and saying, well, he's not actually for rent. It's that he has been influenced by this money that did this to these bigger preachers and Big Eva, and he wouldn't believe this if it wasn't for that. And it's like, no, he believed this because he went to college and read these books. It had nothing to do with Big Eva money influence trickling down to him. He's roughly the same age as me. He has the same education roughly that I have. Give it that he has a much higher education, but I'm talking about like the same books that he read in elementary school and junior high and high school. The same books that we read. And so he already had that information. It wasn't a trickle-down effect. It was just an education effect. All right. That's where we are.
If you, I'll pass it to you.
Sure, I can summarize. I've probably been the one who's most deeply involved in all this on Twitter, although Tripp's jumped in here or there too. So full disclosure, Meg Basham, who's the author, she's a journalist for the Daily Wire, is a friend of mine. And I've been sort of along with her on this whole sort of journey in her journalism leading up to the book and the creation of the book, although I didn't get time to weigh in on the manuscript before it actually went to press. And for reasons we might get into, I now sort of wish that I had, because I would have made some suggestions that maybe would have helped with some of the drama now. So this book is, how to describe it? Well, let's look at the subtitle. How Evangelical Leaders Traded the Truth for a Leftist Agenda. So she covers a bunch of different areas, race, COVID, LGBT, climate change.
I'm curious what Bethel's bad take and the author's bad take on race is. It's a bad take. It's not a good take.
All these sorts of weak spots, vulnerabilities, where the main line has been captured. A lot of the Catholic Church has been captured, but
Catholic Church has not been captured. Bad Protestant.
Evangelicals are sort of the last bulwark or the last.
No, evangelicals are in the middle of their own split. But yeah, let's color reality with your insanity. Oh, we will get to they don't believe in evolution thing. We'll get there.
Last holdout in American culture, and leftists have been plotting and scheming and trying to figure out how to crack this nut.
No, they haven't. They really don't care. Seriously, they don't care.
So this book is about some of the ways that they've tried to do that and sort of succeeded, maybe partly succeeded, and then people kind of raised the alarm and there was some walking back or more memory holing, as case may be. And
There wasn't any memory holding.
her point is that this has happened because there have been too many people who are either corrupted themselves, or even if they're not yet themselves really corrupt.
This is such a bad take on everything. This is the kind of person I would never want on my channel, and I would not want to interact with in a one-on-one basis in life.
Maybe they're a little
Influenced.
too easily influenced. They want to seem nice. You know, they don't want people
By the way, the examples that she's using is leading up to Gavin Ordlin.
to think that they're, you know, they're mean or fundamentalist or whatever. So they've kind of allowed themselves to be captured.
The snightness is her indirectly trying to defend fundamentalism and evangelicalism, which already has many black eyes for the bad and evil stuff it's done in the last few years, in the last 30 years.
And fallen asleep at the wheel in various ways, maybe.
And I do want to make that video as well, where I want to, you know, I don't want people to think this is an anti-theist channel or an anti-religious channel. Religion's fine. I'll defend religion till I'm blue in the face. The problem is apologetics. Apologetics is spreading anti-science. It's spreading homophobia. It's spreading hate. The religions themselves aren't doing it. This is not the official stances of many of these religions. These are the official stances of apologists who are within the religion, and they're getting too big for their britches. That's what's going on. This is just apologists and preachers and pastors thinking their opinion matters more than it does, and it doesn't. And they're misleading the world, whether it's Tyler Marshall, whether it's Brian Holdsworth, whether it's James White, whether it's that hate preacher from Florida that I always get his name wrong, who's not Brandon Sanderson, but his name sounds like that, Mr. Anderson or something like that. I don't know. You have these hate preachers and idiots who are spreading lies, you have people like Allie Beth Stuckey who are saying, oh, evolution isn't true. You have people like Frank Turek saying, well, microevolution, the fact that microevolution can't be proven proves that evolution isn't true. You have these really idiotic statements that are happening. And I think it's really sad that people like Trent Horn, who are brilliant, have fallen into some of these traps. I'm really happy that him and Jimmy have recently pushed back. I don't know if that's because someone in the organization, either EWTN or what's the apostolate, Catholic Answers, has told them, hey, you guys are kind of falling into this problem. You're becoming part of the problem. Or if it's just they themselves, because Jimmy's very smart, if they themselves just realize that they've overextended themselves and they started to dip into some of the bad apologetics that comes out of Protestantism, and they're like, hey, let's pull back. I don't know. I don't know which one it is. It could be either one. They're very, like I said, they're very smart people, so it's not as if they're unaware. But Gavin Ortlund is guilty of that. Gavin Ortlund is guilty of dipping his toe into the, oh, well, I know that this isn't true, but you believe it's true, and therefore it's okay because. No, it's not okay. The people who are denying evolution, the people who are denying vaccines, the people who are denying basic rights to other human beings, these are bad actors. They hurt the religion and they hurt other things. That doesn't mean that we have to go progressive and liberal and suddenly abandon our principles. But it does mean that we don't need to have the worst actors and the worst people representing our side just because they agree with us. Their agreeing with us doesn't make them right, and it doesn't make us wrong, but it does mean that just because they agree with us on one thing doesn't mean that the rest of their opinions or actions are suddenly sanctified or good.
And so she is kind of playing the role of a bit of a watchdog who's yipping and yapping and going, hey, look out, you need to have a better nose for this stuff. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, what this book is about, and it's blowing up. It just made the New York Times bestseller list, and it's kind of caught Big Eva flat-footed. We can sort of get into who Big Eva is and, what some of the reactions have been, but that's the short version of this book.
Yeah, I think that that's helpful. I became aware of this whole situation. I think maybe I'd seen, like advertisements.
And again, Church Split or whatever that one's called, they have a much better take. They have a better nuanced take. They have a lot more knowledge and information. They have a really good criticism against Gavin Ortland. They have really good criticism against this lady. They've read the book. They know what they're talking about. Still, there's not really much for me to say if I was watching that video. So if you want to go watch them after this, I recommend you do it. You'll learn a lot about the Gavin Ortland situation. I think it's called Church Split or Church Divide. They have a really good take on it. I think the video is like 5 days old or 6 days old. This is not a great take, but this gives me something to feed off of and respond to.
For this book or something like that. But I didn't really know much about it until I saw Gavin Ortland's video. And that was actually my first real exposure, was Gavin saying, hey, I've been misrepresented in the book. Here are some things that she said about me. Let me play some clips from that original YouTube video that sort of helped clarify and exonerate myself from some of these accusations. And I remember at first being like, wait, why is she picking on Gavin? Gavin's the wrong person to fight. I'm generally a fan of Gavin. I watch half or more of his videos. I wouldn't say saying I'm a friend of Gavin.
I'll be honest, I've watched all of Gavin Ortland's videos, and I've chatted with him a few times in the little comments. He actually responds back. Decent fellow. I don't agree with all of his theology, don't agree with all of his Protestantism. But as far as Protestant apologist goes, he's probably the best one out there, not just in quality, but in the ability to tolerate what he says.
Would stretch our relationship too strong, but I've corresponded with him privately, positively in the past, and kind of hope to interact with him in the future. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that the video that he is scheduled to debut on Monday is an interaction with a video that I made about him in the past.
And I would probably agree with a lot of that video, by the way, except his trying to use Origin, but we don't have to get into that. But
right.
I love Origin. If you don't like Origin, then you got the problem.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Theologically speaking, there's probably a lot of ways Gavin and I would align against you, even perhaps.
Yes,
Yeah. Anyway.
I don't like her partisanism. It's really gross.
But yeah, go on.
And so I was, kind of offended with and on behalf of Gavin, based off of his video. And then I started, texting and interacting with some of you guys, and then finally read the chapter about him. And I'm
the chapter isn't about him. Even the section,
the section in the chapter about him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could see why, if I'm Gavin, I would be upset about that, and why I might feel the need to respond with my own YouTube channel. But I also feel like there was a lot of mischaracterization of Megan in Gavin's own video.
There's really not. Gavin did a really good job.
That was and again, the border between mischaracterization and here's my impression and analysis of what you said is a little blurry in both of these instances.
I actually agree with you. Yeah.
And that there's a little bit of, here are the vibes I was feeling, and here's how that is connecting with the theme of my book that I'm dealing with.
Yes.
And that's a little bit more vague than and I also felt like Gavin didn't do a good job of clarifying that Megan was not accusing him of accepting money or accepting bribes or being financially influenced, but he was an example of one of these people who's downstream of the influence campaign, who then...
This is so patronizing. Gavin, you're not strong enough or smart enough to think for yourself. You were definitely influenced by Big Eva and big pastors who had been bought off. You would never hold these opinions on your own. Not you, a Christian. You wouldn't think these things, like maybe the environment needs to be saved or preserved for future generations. That would be sick and disgusting. How dare you agree with previous Christians and pastors and Catholics?
And starts to make noises that sound similar to the goals of the influence campaign.
That's
from
right.
a spot of medium level influence.
Again, if you go back to when this story first broke years ago, before it was about Gavin Ortland, the whole point was to amplify pastors who already agreed with the point of view. So they weren't influencing them to believe the point of view. They were helping people who already agreed with them spread their message. And the moment they started saying things they didn't like, they would pull back the funding.
Or something like that.
Yes, I mean he's been influenced, but not in a dark money changing hands way.
Or maybe he hasn't been influenced and that's just his opinion because he's a smart thinking man. Maybe? Maybe he's just intelligent. Maybe.
Or not even that Gavin wants to get invited to cocktail parties in New York way. That's not what it was about. It was he was just a good illustrative example of trickle down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Again,
so,
it's not trickle down. Wasn't trickle down. He studied the stuff in college, and he read these books on his own as an adult after college, as while he was still a professional professional apologist, a professional pastor. You are really insulting the man's intelligence and his individuality and his capacities.
like, just for those who haven't read the book, you know, you should. It's worth reading for sure, especially if you're in kind of fundamentalist, like Christian evangelical world. Like, this is worth reading. You really need to read this book. The thing is, like, Megan's Core, it's not even, I hesitate to even call it a thesis, because she documents a lot of it so well and so explicitly that it's not even like up for debate. That explicitly some non-Christian atheist progressive groups like explicitly said, because evangelicals are the largest voting bloc in the country, we need to influence them on X, Y, and Z political policy. How do we do that? And one of their ways of doing it, and they lay it out, they actually explicitly say in these memos that she documents that, you know, the Rockefellers, the Gates Foundation, these kind of groups literally funnel money into,
Like literally George Soros.
Literally George Soros.
And anti-Semitism strikes again, and so is conspiracy. This theory.
It's not even
Literally.
it's not even a conspiracy. It's like
Not
No.
even figurative George Soros.
That's why I
literally
hesitate
George
to even
Soros.
call it a thesis. It's not even a thesis. It's just like
just
she's saying,
look,
hey,
here.
like they're
can go read
saying the
this
thing,
online.
right?
Yeah.
So
And
like,
even, by the way, just can I just quickly jump
Yeah,
in?
go
So
ahead.
so people have been complaining about the title "Shepherds for Sale," like, ooh, it's this, yellow journal was a provocative thing. If you look at this, one of these documents that she cites, there's literally the phrase "rent an evangelical" in there, and it's
Yeah, but that's not the same phrase, and it doesn't mean the same thing. Renting's very different than buying, and someone being for sale is very different than someone trying to buy someone. Do you not understand wordplay? So if someone's trying to buy someone, that doesn't mean that the person they're trying to buy is for sale. That's the first problem. The second thing, renting someone is not buying someone. And amplifying someone's message because it agrees with yours is very different than corrupting someone or bribing someone to agree with you.
by one of these giant groups. Literally, this is the
I think it was by the Gates Foundation. I think that's
might even have
It was the Gates Foundation. This was a big story a few years ago and nobody cared. Now it's not a big story and everybody cares.
that, and it is
Yeah.
literally the "how are we going to come up with a plot to take over the evangelical church" document. This is not
Right.
QAnon. This is not conspiracy.
And it's not, again, it's not about taking over the evangelical church. They saw allies in certain preachers and pastors like, Weber. What's her name? Weber. I can't remember her first name. That female open lesbian pastor. So they saw these messages, Randall Rouser types. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't trust Randall Rouser for a long time was because of this. So, no, this is not new. Again, this was an open secret during the pandemic. I don't know why suddenly it's being conspiratorialized, other than an angry Daily Wire writer who wants to create heat and make a lot of hay out of the differences between conservatives and progressives, and they want to poison religiosity with and evangelicalism with modern politics.
and,
right
and
there.
the entire strategy was to financially influence those like highly visible people at the top so that it does trickle
Again, not influence, amplify.
down to the like sub influencers and ultimately to the pastors and ultimately to the pews in the church. That was the strategy. It's explicit. It's in the document. Like there's no There's no question about that. And so just because you're mentioned in Meghan's book doesn't mean she's saying you're one of those people at the top. What she's saying is, hey, this is evidence that not only are they doing this, it's kind of working.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of. I mean, it's with variable success. I mean,
Right.
there's sometimes where she documents that things fizzle out. The people, the rank and file, kind of stand up and go, "Hey, wait a minute, we don't actually agree with this," and so mixed bag. And then I would say we can talk about this later, but COVID was like its own singular weird
Yes.
thing, even though there's some interesting intersections. But in any case, in some cases it has kind of worked. And I would say maybe the biggest example of this would be Andy Stanley at the Arcus Foundation. So Stanley, it turned out, was like completely in cahoots with.
Maybe clarify who Andy Stanley is.
Oh, sorry. So Andy Stanley is pastor of a megachurch. He's the son of Charles Stanley, who is this beloved old-time minister, preacher, faithful conservative. And Andy is now sort of the bad son who's squandering his father's.
People can just disagree with you without it being a conspiracy. And people who disagree with you but agree with the other ones, or at least like the other ones, might want to fund the people that disagree with you, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Legacy and slow walking into progressivism and compromise. And Meg specifically documented.
You have to prove that. This is pure wild speculation. You have to prove that progressive Christianity is wrong and conservative Christianity is right. Prove that. Go for it. The Catholic Church has been doing it with Protestants for almost 1,000 years now, and neither side has compromised.
How that happened with LGBT stuff, where he began, inviting people who were breaking down orthodoxy in that area.
Right. And that's the other thing, is that, the whole thing with Gavin was over, like, an example over climate change, but there are a number of policies that were, like, has nothing to do with climate change. It have to do with COVID, LGBT stuff, like all this.
The COVID stuff is really stupid. The LGBT stuff, I get it. There are stances that cannot be crossed inside Christianity. Fine. You're going to have a hard time explaining how LGBT Christianity is now a growing part of Christianity, but besides the point. But the COVID stuff is really stupid. You're mad at your pastors for agreeing with or believing the science as it was presented, and for falling for groupthink, which you yourself fall into and you yourself are demonstrating right now.
This kind of stuff, like, this is like the strategy. And so she's just documenting it and saying, like, to some degree it has worked, and you can see its influences going on. And the ones that it works, I think, best on, the ones that you can most clearly see, are either the people that want to be seen as nice, right, to like Bethel's point earlier, or the people that want to be seen as smart and sophisticated. And that's the other group of, like.
Notice that they're insulting people who are intelligent. This is so bad. This is everything that I warn about in my Satanic Panic videos, everything that I warn about in my anti-apologetic videos. This is an example of bad apologetics, of bad reasoning, of fallacious reasoning, conspiratorial thinking, straight up lying, misrepresentation, omission. I mean, this is every example of bad apologetics without the guilt tripping.
Evangelicals who are very susceptible to this influence, not necessarily the money, but the influence from down below. If you want, like, Francis Collins and those kind of folks to think that you're like a really smart, sophisticated Christian or whatever, you need to adopt these kind of positions, and you can see the influence all the way down. And so that's her thing. And like, whenever Gavin like released this video, I had already read the book. I didn't even remember what she said about it. Like, yeah. I had to go back and like, I downloaded the Kindle version because I was like, where is this? Because it's such a small part of the book. It's a few pages. It's really not that big. And we can say that, like, maybe she should have phrased.
It's a few pages, and the summary has to do with it. The summary includes it as a reference point. But just a few pages. Such a dishonest take.
These things a little bit differently, or she was interspersing like quotes with interpretation and that kind of stuff. And fine. At the same time, like, I did find that when I watched that video that she was referring to, I did find it condescending and kind of obnoxious, regardless of your political position on climate change. And I think she has a point. I don't even think she was.
You don't like the fact that he believes climate change is real. Watch Ruslan's video on this situation. Her sources also believe climate change is real. And they also believe it's man-made. So you're huffing your own farts for no reason.
Was actually misinterpreting him. I think that she just probably clumsily described some of it. But I think she's more right than wrong, to be honest.
Well, yeah. So I mean, to go back to what Sam was saying about vibes, there are two places where I think she should probably rewrite it, and that's where she takes this phrase "responsible posture," which is directly lifted from a bit of Gavin's video. And in context, Gavin is in the middle of saying, don't shoot from the hip. You really need to study this and hit the books. And these people who are just knee-jerk disagreeing, I don't think that's a responsible posture to take. So the actual antecedent of responsible posture is or we could say implied irresponsible posture is not studying, not hitting the books, disagreeing casually. Now, I think that's already condescending. I think it's fine for people to just casually say, yeah, this doesn't smell right. I'm skeptical. I'm going to move on. And it's like he's already saying, oh, well, that's irresponsible. So, sorry, piss off. But I still think that Meg was mistaken to
That's funny.
to sort of look.
So whoever made the first comment, I should let you know that your comment got yeeted, but so it never even showed up. I never even got to see it. But the widget that I have that records whatever is put out there, that did show up on my screen. So you're not in the chat. I can't see you. You could say whatever you want. The chat isn't putting you out there, but the widget is catching you. Just letting you know.
Look at the vibes, the totality, and go, well, look, it's sort of implied
BS.
that if you disagree with him, you're not taking a responsible posture. I think that is some implication of what he's saying, but it would still have been better if she hadn't taken that phrase and re-embedded it into her own interpretive context.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's the sort of thing that should have been caught in editorial, and it wasn't. This.
That's
such
that
a minor
climate
part of
change,
the. Yeah, go ahead.
it is a minor part. That video about
BS, you discovered a way around the censorship. Congratulations.
climate change is similar to some of Gavin's books or videos that are like, actually, divine simplicity is really important. And I know a lot of evangelicals do not like the doctrine of divine simplicity because it turns God into some philosophical abstraction. But little did you know, it's actually the majority position throughout church history. And here's why I think that you should take divine simplicity more seriously. And I'm trying to elevate the discourse. And shouldn't we be open?
I want to go against the experts. Come on, guys, let's listen to the experts. So yeah.
And there is
experts, so evil. How dare we look to experts? All of this comes down to their hatred of authority, which is very funny.
line in his video about climate change, which is
these people are worth trusting. And I'm sorry, on stuff like this isn't like the consensus of the church over 2,000 years. This is something that was made up like 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry, I'm perfect.
Concern for the climate was not made up 10 minutes ago. Believe it or not, you want to use a good example. Jordan Peterson uses a great example when he's trying to discount overpopulation. The concern for climate change and for overpopulation and for human cost, natural disasters, goes all the way back to the time of the pre-Socratics. There are pre-Socratics who are worried about overpopulation. The pre-Socratics, before Socrates philosophers, were concerned with overpopulation and concerned with climate change and with pollution. So no, this isn't new. It's actually older than Christianity. But okay, be an idiot. Trip.
Perfectly fine saying, oh, the person that's saying we should we should take over the entire U.S. economy and have a top-down centralized, planned economy for climate change. It's perfectly reasonable for me to be like, no, I don't trust you on that, and I'm perfectly fine not hitting the books and just saying, get out of here. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think that's irrational in any way, and I think Gavin's wrong on that.
Yeah. And I like the general idea of like the more people who disagree with you or the more experts who disagree with you, the higher burden is on you to show that you're right. Like when it comes to the topics of the Trinity, I get that I have a higher burden and that I'm wrestling
Yes, you
uphill
do, Sam.
with and like I understand that heuristic. Although it is funny that my main message to Gavin on the Trinity is to hit the books. But you know, just pointing that out.
The fact that they're anti-intellectual and anti-knowledge is ironic to no end.
But
Apparently,
like,
he hit the books and he found Origin.
Hang up is it might be the Me Too chapter, it might be the you know, people who like Tim Keller, it could be, you know, whatever it is, they're all converging at the same time. So
The only question is whether or not you should trust these people. And so that's the question that you really care about that. And that's what bothered me about his climate one was the discourse. I'm fine with that and saying, listen, a lot of I think that, you know, it's, you know, whatever you can elevate the discourse that way. But if you come and you tell people like, no, if you're going to disagree with all of these people, like you better hit the books, implying that you haven't, or like these people are worth trusting. And I'm sorry on stuff like this isn't like the consensus of the church over 2,000 years. This is something that was made up like 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry. I'm perfectly fine saying, oh, the person that's saying we should like, yeah, we should take over the entire U.S. economy and have a top-down centralized, you know, planned economy for climate change. It's perfectly reasonable for me to be like, no, I don't trust you on that, and I'm perfectly fine not hitting the books and just saying get out of here. Like, I don't think that's irrational in any way, and I think Gavin's wrong on that.
yeah, and I like the general idea to show.
I was
that
hoping
you're
he would say
like-
something about Origin, but he didn't.
Because it was contrary to the world, you know, the world, and you know,
years, and now all of them are converging on the book and focusing on, you know, whatever their preferred.
Rosario
A
Butterfield.
lot of people think that it was badly written and badly researched. But yeah, that's a conspiracy against you that people don't like it. It has nothing to do with the quality of the book or the fact that the knowledge is hearsay and the accusations are unfounded. No.
or whatever, like they start to like defend, then that's a signal to that group.
He said this, he didn't technically say that,
Sure.
but it would have been good if that had come along with some self-reflection. And, you know, my tone was pretty condescending, and I did say twice that I was really unimpressed with the minority view. And I did, you know, certainly, you know, heavily imply
You're in the minority view. You're denying climate change and vaccinations and evolution. You're in the minority view. So whatever view... Oh, let's go back. Let's hear this stupidity.
We're sending money. Like where? And like I'm quite frankly pretty pissed about that. And I think that Gavin, that's another thing that irritates me about Gavin's response, is that he's throwing himself in front of bullets that are better reserved for other people. Like he is like just a minor example in this book, and he's being used like a useful idiot. Sorry, Gavin, if you're watching, for this. And I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Like you weren't the point of the book. The fact of the matter is that had you read the book and you saw this, you should be really pissed. You should be. And if you're not,
Gavin not being a useful idiot is your problem with him.
and it's just about you.
I'm not saying Gavin's honest or that he's like the poster boy for good deeds done well. He's not. I mean, he lies about Catholicism. He lies about Protestantism to defend Protestantism. He's not a perfect guy. But he's at least reasonable.
That's ridiculous, because you can read these letters and these memos, and I don't understand why more people aren't talking about that, because every denomination, the SBC should, I mean, Megan is a member of a Southern Baptist church. That is her denomination. She is right to be pissed about how the Southern Baptist money was being used by the ERLC and these other groups that she and her family were tithing to. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous
Yeah.
for you to act like she should just be like, bow out. It's not her, whatever. No, absolutely not. She should be mad about this.
Yeah, and I think it would have been fine for Gavin to put out a video and you know, clarify a few places where you know, I do think you could.
Okay, again, Gavin actually believes in climate change. So no, he's not going to clarify that he doesn't believe in it. You're trying to pressure him to change his mind to agree with you, but he doesn't agree with you. He believes in climate change. He believes that it's the duty of a person who, as the steward of the earth, to take care of the earth, which also means addressing climate change and doing what you can to either, if not prevent it, at least to mitigate it and to mitigate its damages.
Could pinpoint. She said he said this. He didn't technically say that.
Sure.
But it would have been good if that had come along with some self-reflection. And my tone was pretty condescending, and I did say twice that I was really unimpressed with the minority view, and I did, certainly, heavily imply that my side was the side of reason and enlightenment or whatever. And so I could see why somebody would have listened to that video, come away pretty irritated. So, hey, that's a fair tag, and maybe I am a little too quick to swallow consensus and
Or maybe everything that he said was right and nothing he said was wrong in that video, which I don't think anything he said was wrong in that video. When the original video came out, I commented on it. I think he did a great job. I'm very happy he made that video.
look what happened with COVID. If he had said some of those things, in addition to saying, but with respect,
I don't know if we're going to get into the COVID thing, but man, these people are idiots. The fact that this not community noted to hell underneath their video is insane to me.
I do think you took me out of context here, and so I wanted to kind of clarify
Yeah,
that. Maybe we can have
I
that
was caught in a
conversation, right?
dragnet I didn't belong in. But
Yeah.
also, what if he had said something like, "Go get them, Megan," right?
Right.
Like
Sure.
this,
Exactly.
some of the things that you're pointing to are a big problem. And if you're even close to the truth, it's an enormous deal. And I don't want to stand in the way of that.
Right, and why don't you come on my show? We can talk about this, and I'll say, hey, Meg, why'd you say I said this when I didn't? But also, I do like the book, so let's,
Yeah.
just
No,
be,
that's
be
that.
a man, okay?
that-
Talk about
no,
this like
that-
a man.
that's
Or
right.
how about this? I didn't like the book. I don't agree with what you're doing. I think what you're doing is dangerous and irresponsible because we need to care for our world for the next generation, and they should care for the world for the next generation after that because we want a future long after we're gone for this world. Or he could have said that.
Thing
Yep.
is that like you didn't even have to give her anything, honestly. In my mind, you could have been like, I think I was completely misrepresented, but I read the rest of the book, and honestly, like there is like stuff that's worth talking about here. So
She's going to sort of come up against and
Nah, I don't think conspiracy theories need to be given extra fuel. They're going to burn fine on their own.
great with the sort of seeker sensitive, more elite evangelicals who have been working really hard to carefully distinguish themselves from those old school fundamentalists and to tell the watching world, right? We're not like those guys over there. Really, I know they're kind of cringe and they're weird and embarrassing and they don't believe in evolution and stuff. We're the cool kids, okay? We're not like those Christians. You can trust us. You can have enlightened, reasonable conversations with us.
You can
So-
have your faith heart on
Exactly.
and your brain on at the same time.
right, and
Yeah.
that was, that was
I like how the bad guys are the ones who let you think. Okay, this is good enough here. Well, if we come back to it, we will if we need to. But for now, I think we're good. Let's go on to why you should be Protestant. Let's have Gavin be the bad guy for a few minutes. Ugh.
in what are infallible.
Here. Gavin, it is so good to have you here in person.
It's great to do it in person. We've talked so much in through a computer screen. This is much better.
It really is. We were talking right before we were recording all this, just how many of these we've done. And it feels like we've known each other for so long, but we've never actually met. So this is good to do. The occasion for today, people may know, is you wrote a new book. You tend to do that quite frequently, it seems. But on what it means to be Protestant. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, but I think it makes sense to actually start there with the title. What does it mean to be Protestant? Is it simply
I don't know. He looks a little bit more Mexican, a little bit more Italian. I don't know. I think it's a better look for him.
Western Christian that doesn't like
He needs a little gold chain, though. You know what I mean?
Rome? Or is there a positive identity besides kind of in protest?
Okay, yeah. This is the whole start of the book, is trying to say because it's actually a harder question than people might think.
Sure.
And it's trying to get after a positive identity of that. And so I speak about Protestantism as a renewal movement within the church. So we can maybe get clarity about what it is by saying what it isn't. It's not an attempt to jump off the ship and start a new church. It's not a rejection of everything that God has done previously to Protestantism in the 16th century when Protestantism emerges. It's not a rejection of everything outside of Protestantism as having no ecclesial reality. Rather, it's a reform and renewal effort within the church. So, and that is conducted on the basis of going back to Holy Scripture as the supreme North Star. That's maybe a shorthand starting point, and I know we'll unpack that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a really great place to start. And renewal is one. I mean, it's actually the name of the ministry that you function under, I think, right?
Yep,
Renewal Ministries. But so this idea of Protestantism being a renewal movement within the one true church, I think something that some people might get a little confused about there is Protestantism probably started with the goal of staying within kind of visible communion, right, and renewing the church from the inside, and that maybe didn't go quite according to plan. But given the state of schism that the church finds itself in, right, and the separation of the churches, in what sense is the Protestant church acting as a force of renewal for, say, Catholics or Orthodox?
Okay. Yeah. So, well, let me say a couple things about this because I hear some of these concerns come up a lot too,
Yeah.
and just to speak to a kind of rapid fire here. A
Yeah,
couple
let's do
things. So the subtitle of the book has this phrase "always reforming,"
Mhm.
and so I think you could take this in one of two different ways. You could take it in the way of you're always reforming, therefore you're very flimsy. You're just blown every which direction, and that's not the intent with that slogan from the Protestants. You can think of it like an individual Christian who's always reforming.
Okay.
They're always growing. They're always seeking to be more like Christ every single day, and we're thinking of that for the whole church like that. So that's the intent of the word reform. Renewal within the church. I think the concern that might come up here is, well, can it really be a form of renewal if there has been this separation that has occurred? And I like this phrase renewal within the church because it's trying to get at making this as broad as possible. But maybe I could just state the on-the-ground reality that Protestants are sort of starting from. If you're a Christian in the 16th century, maybe just prior to that as well. So when we say renewal, we mean a sort of fresh understanding of the gospel. Not that
Most of this is bullshit, by the way. But it's and a little bit of word salad, but it's good bullshit and it's tasty salad.
the gospel had totally been lost, not that no one believed the gospel, nothing like this. But I think we can all kind of recognize there are greater and lesser degrees of vitality in our understanding of the gospel and in our walking in the gospel. And basically Protestants think that things did get bad, both morally and doctrinally, in the late medieval West particularly. And so the nature of the renewal is a sort of fresh experience of the gospel. Now, the relationship of that to all of these sort of like institutional, broader connections is kind of then a second point of say, how do we do that? It's true, the first intent is not a renewal within Eastern Orthodoxy or something like that. Although I will say, and this is maybe a note to start on because we have many wonderful Eastern Orthodox viewers, Roman Catholic viewers, non-Protestant viewers. I'll try not to annoy them. God bless them. And they have totally valid concerns at points that I'll try to hear. But one thing that is worth really emphasizing is Protestants didn't say that there are no Christians or true churches outside of our effort here. In fact, they were pretty generous to the Eastern Orthodox, to the Oriental Orthodox. Now, a cynical way of reading that would be to say, well, it might have served their polemic against Rome to be that way. Nonetheless, it's actually significant that in that historical context, Luther, Calvin, and later key Protestants were as, I will say, generous as they were towards some of these non-Protestant traditions, affirming a full ecclesial status, affirming valid sacraments, affirming salvation. We tend to take a lot of those things for granted today, but in that historical context, unfortunately, that was pretty rare. I actually think it's been a Protestant influence in many ways that has caused us to think with less institutional restriction when we think about the church. And that's actually what I see as one of the great things about Protestantism and why it can function as a renewal.
I'll be honest with you. I'm very tired. I've had a very long day. I think I'm going to call it a night. I hate to call it so early, but I had a little audience, and then the audience is gone, and I'm kind of falling asleep. So we'll do this tomorrow, guys. I'm very sorry. I'm very tired. But let's go to the next one real quick. Because I want to do the whole thing, and I want to be awake for the whole thing. I want to do this whole video. I'm just going to give snippets of the next year. I am very sleepy. So we're going to go a little bit of this, a little bit of the next one, and then we're just going to jump in. We'll continue tomorrow once we hit the hour.
Executed, and they were not under the jurisdiction of the Roman Catholic Church. The Protestants want to say, hey, these are still traveling, or you're in that
educated guy, and I like the way he comes at.
I really like Matt Whitman, but a lot of his views lately that he's expressed on Catholicism has been very disappointing. Not that I was expecting him to become a Catholic, but just his views in general on Catholicism have been very disappointing considering how ecumenical he was just a few years ago. So I don't know what happened recently.
The conversation is just super easy. Opposite impulse, which is to think nothing and do nothing to just try to get people to get along by pretending that
filled with cows because he's also the father of Ariadne, Phaedra, Androgeus, and among others, and most famously known for being the king whose wife was used as a pawn by Poseidon, who was angry with Minos, and under the god's will, Pasiphae, his wife, slept with the Cretan bull.
I love this channel. I love this chick. I wish she made more videos. I wish she was more famous, but she's not, but that's okay.
And then birthed the Minotaur. I know. So where did the artists get their idea from? The only kind of
do you think that, like, we as a human species are more? And so if Augustine was saying that about back then imagine how much worse it is for all of us. I mean, we wouldn't exactly the Catholic cult. Some people get bristly about the word cult.
That's how I ran across your work. Go ahead and the Phoenix, and we're not here to talk about that tonight, but that's how I ran across your work. Go ahead and give us a little bit of an introduction. Pitch your channel. I know the descriptions are down in the links are down in the description. But give us a little, like in a nutshell, who are you? What's your channel about? And what turns you on? What lights up your brain the most?
Yeah.
Doing this stuff. I don't mean other things.
Yeah. No. Thanks, Michael. First of all, for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. Your guests
Michael
have
Beverly
been
has a pretty
some
good
very
show.
esteemed people, and then me. So
And
I'm
Kevin's,
very thrilled
got
to be
good
here.
stuff as well.
A little bit about who I am. So my name's Kevin. I grew up in I call it a Catholic cult. Some people get bristly about the word cult. But generally, when you have to say, like, well, was it a cult or wasn't? That means that there's something a little weird about how you grew up. So anyway, that's how I grew up. And I can tell you more, like, a little bit about that later. But I wound up leaving the cult after getting kind of forced into a marriage when I was 22 years old. And
That's
after that,
interesting. I wanna
my
talk
life
to him
was
about
kind of
that.
very
I'll press him about
tumultuous.
that
I
when we
moved
finally talk
700
on
miles
channel.
away, started a new life, really kind of lost contact with everybody from my old life. And that was all, I guess, about...
I had a previous video on Kevin that I really wanted to do, but unfortunately, one of the videos in that stream had some slurs that I was not comfortable with. So, and because the editing software wasn't working and the downloading wasn't working, I privated it and then I put it over on a members only section. So I mean, it's still watchable, but I didn't like the slurs that were used. So, if you haven't subscribed to Kevin's channel, I believe now it's Kevoni, something, I don't know, something, Kevin of Origin, Karen of Alexandria, I don't know, something like that. Go watch his channel, subscribe to it. Michael Beverly, he's great. You already know.
6 years ago. And so I guess just about 2 years ago, I figured, hey, I've been doing like a lot of reading and learning and stuff. And what I really want to do is I really want to make sure that I'm right about this stuff. And I think I've kind of exhausted all that I can do by like calling into like Catholic talk shows and stuff like that. So now I'm going to start a channel and I'm going to see if I can get the
I've never called into Catholic talk shows. I probably should have done that.
attention of Catholic apologists. And I have. I've had some of the big dogs in Catholic apology.
I would love to have some of the big dogs on my channel. I don't think it's happened. I don't think it's going to happen. Is that too negative? My channel's doing great, guys. We're going to have big guests. Is that believable?
On my channel to have conversations with me. Because like I said, I want to make sure that, if I...
Trent Horn, you're invited to my channel. There. Not Jimmy Akin, because I'll get destroyed, but I can beat Trent Horn in an argument, so... Trent Horn, bring it. Dan McKellen, bring it. I'll debate both Dan McKellen and Trent Horn at the same time with one hand behind my back. Word.
If I left the church, I want to make sure that it was the right decision to make. And so far, I haven't reverted back to Catholicism. I don't think I'm particularly close to it.
Wait till you talk to me.
But I'm also not planning on stopping my investigation, and I'm confident that if all truth really is God's truth, and if the one true church is the Catholic Church, then I'll wind up back there as long as I keep searching. But until that day, I'm going to stay here on YouTube. So yeah, that's a little bit about...
Or you convert back and you get on YouTube and then you convert and more people to Catholicism. Wouldn't that be grand?
That sounds like a good plan. Now, let me play devil's advocate here. Maybe...
my voice is slipping. It's not me doing a voice. I'm just that tired. I'm going to go 20 more seconds, guys, and then we'll do outro music.
Islam is true, or maybe some other faith. Is your investigation into Catholicism touch on those same topics?
Yeah, so people ask me this a lot, and honestly, it's not as much Islam as it is Orthodoxy, and then also just kind of like non-Catholic Christianity. And my answer, I think, sometimes for us,
Okay, we're good. We're done. We'll come back to this. We're gonna do all these videos again. Not the first one. The first one was fine. We hit that one. It's done. It's over. It's okay. But I'm about to pass out. So let's do the outro music, and then we'll do some more Gavin Ortlund tomorrow, and we do some Michael Beverly the day after. Since I missed like several days this week, we're just gonna keep going. I am sleepy. Had a very long day. Let's do this.
As you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away. Cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be